Good morning, my creative friends, and happy Monday. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and this is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, where we gather to connect, to create, to really look at how we can use art journaling as a tool for mindful meditation and personal introspection. I find so much of my learning and growth in that deep inner inquiry comes through the creative page. So I want to encourage you, if this is your first time here, to grab an art journal that you're working in, some mixed media paper, a few of your favorite supplies, and play along with me. Today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite poems by Emily Dickinson. In fact, we're going to spend a couple of days here with Emily Dickinson. It's National Poetry Month, and I've been having a lot of fun this month reflecting on different of my favorite poems and how to bring those poems into my art journal and use them as the what Parker Palmer calls the third thing, is that way of looking at what's happening in my life in connection with the poem as well. Good morning, Tori. Thank you, as always, for being here live. Thank you for watching the replay. If you're brand new to this series, welcome. I'm delighted that you're here. We're almost at 100 videos, which is pretty exciting. I've been doing this since December and have been having a lot of fun and sort of just amazed at the way the consistency helps me fill a lot of journals and deepen my own personal practice. So I'm super excited to share this practice with all of you. This is not art lessons. This is me just sharing my process and playing along with you. And I'm super, super happy to be here. Hey, good morning, Leslie. Great to see you here. You're up and about early this morning. All right. So, one of our regular attendees asked if I could do some Emily Dickinson poetry. And of course, I said, yes, I love Emily Dickinson. We're going to be looking at one of her most famous poems this morning, Hope is the Thing with Feathers. And I also think I'm going to continue with this silhouette that I have been working with a few different times in my art journal. And so I'm loving watching the pages in this fill up. There's always something satisfying about watching a journal fill up. And I'm looking for some of those silhouettes. So there was one way I used her with Sunset by Rainer Maria Rilke, a gorgeous poem. And then we used her the other day for something else. This was Love After Love by Derek Walcott, whose poetry I love. That was Marge Piercy, The Seven of Pentacles. So many beautiful poems we've looked at in the space of the month. We did two poems by Antonio Machado. This was one of my favorites last night as I was sleeping. And I was doing some journaling and not paying attention. And I noticed that this is just printer paper, this honeycomb. And I noticed that the ink bled through, and I actually really loved how it created the interesting texture in the honeycomb. So surprises in an art journal are a good thing. This was by Joy Harjo, Perhaps the World Ends Here, another just really fabulous poem about the things that happen at our kitchen table. Got some sticky pages. And here I use the silhouette and the bee again by a second poem by Antonio Machado. My Soul is Wide Awake. Good morning, Marion. So super excited to, or my Is My Soul Asleep was the name of that poem. Excited to dive in with Emily Dickinson this morning. And I haven't picked a couple of pages yet. So this junk journal was made out of old magazine pages, paper bags, some leftover newsprint that I did some gel printing on, and the pages are pretty fragile. There's a few stiffer pieces of mixed media paper, but I'm noticing the paper kind of needs some care and attention. And it's also really interesting working in a journal like this where you have two substrates that are different, right? Like they feel different, the surfaces are different, and the backgrounds are going to be different as well because of the colors. So before we dive into our poem, I am going to get some gesso down on these two pages. And Marion, we're going to go with your recommendation this morning. Hope is the thing with feathers. I love that poem. I think I taught this, I included it also in our mythical makeover earlier this year. And I had people here in the studio to play this weekend, which was super fun. Everybody brought their own projects, and it was so nice to gather in community. The first time I'd had there were 6 of us, a bigger group, so it helped me get a sense of the flow and the space for my retreat in May. So that was super fun. But of course, I cleaned everything up and put things away and moved things around. And now, I can't find anything again. It'll take a couple of days to get back into my messy rhythm, but it was nice to start with a nice clean space this morning. And gesso is our friend. So this is super, super thin. So I'm going to have to be really mindful of that. And I might even, so if I'm working in a junk journal like this or a recycled book like I was last month, and I get these really thin pages, sometimes it's really helpful to just glue 2 pages together, right? Because when we glue 2 pages together, then we get that thicker paper, and I don't have to worry about that paper falling apart on me. So sometimes that's a really great trick, is just to glue some pages together in your journal. Good morning, Blanca. Blanca's on the West Coast, so she is an extra early bird. All right, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee before it gets stone cold. How's everyone doing this morning? Happy Monday. I had a lovely lunch out with my mom and stepdad. They drove down from the mountains and we had a beautiful walk. I had 2 beautiful walks yesterday, and the trees are just starting to bud out here. My daffodils are just about to bloom. My tulips are coming up. So spring is definitely later here than I'm used to. And I'm very, very grateful that it is appearing. And so many of Emily Dickinson's poems are full of so much beautiful nature imagery, including the 2 I picked for today and for tomorrow. Oh, now I got those pages stuck together too. That's all right, just more texture. Sometimes when you just stick pages of paint together, you can create really cool things happening. All right, we'll let that dry for a minute and let's dive right into Emily Dickinson. It was fun to pull out. Look, this book even has dust on it because I haven't pulled it out in a while. So I have this wonderful compilation of the poems of Emily Dickinson. This is a great compilation of all of her poetry. And she wrote over 1,800 poems, or close to 1,800 poems in her life. Only 10 of them were actually published during her lifetime. She didn't want them to be published, and the ones that were published apparently were published either without her knowing or even sometimes against her will. And then her sister was the one who found them after she died and started to bring them all to the rest of us to enjoy. And one of the things that I love about this particular edition, and her poems don't have names. If you look her up online these days, you'll find, they've given them titles, usually drawn from the first line, and they've often changed the punctuation. But Emily Dickinson really played with punctuation and with the capital letters on things. And so these versions of the poem are truest to her original version. So if you're looking for an anthology or a compilation of the poems of Emily Dickinson, this one is a great one to check out. And they made a fun series on Apple TV. A little extra pink there in the center. They made a fun series about Emily Dickinson on the Apple TV. It was very modern, very quirky, but the fun thing about it is there's lines of her poems sprinkled throughout, and that was my favorite part. I watched some of the series. It was a pretty silly series, but it was fun to hear Dickinson's poetry. All right, let's dive right in to Hope is the Thing with Feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. And there's, again, I've chosen poems. Well, Marion chose this one. Oh, that would be super cool. Thank you, Marion, to visit her home in Amherst. That would be amazing. And what I love here is this entire poem is a metaphor for this idea of hope. And when we think about how hope feels in our bodies, this is such a beautiful expression of that. And it is a very visual poem, as many of her poems are. Tomorrow we're going to do this one, Delight as the Flight. And it's a poem about rainbows that's really sweet. So we're going to do that one tomorrow. And I'm going to read this one more time and just let this sink in a little bit. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. And apparently, Emily Dickinson, many of her poems, even the darker ones, there are a lot of poems about death and mental health and struggles, and they almost always end on an uplift, right? And so there's always this possibility for hope woven through many of her poems. But I love Hope is the Thing with Feathers, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. And I think it's a good reminder in troubled times and in a world that seems always to be busy and fraught with so many challenging things for people personally, nationally, globally. This is such a beautiful, beautiful poem. And of course, what I was drawn to was this idea of this sweet little quirky bird. So I thought I would have some fun painting a little quirky bird this morning, but I also really love maybe getting this silhouette back in here one more time as if she's watching the bird. So that's kind of my idea where I'm going is she's watching the bird, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do about color. And if you had to attach a color to hope, what color pops into your head? If you think about hope, what color is hope? I'm feeling that it might be blue this morning. Don't ask me why, and that could change tomorrow. All right. Although I'm looking at some of these purples and thinking these colors feel really fun this morning too, so maybe we're going to do a mix. Yellow. Hope is yellow. Beautiful. I love that. All right. I think our quirky bird is going to be blue, but I think our silhouette is wanting some of this purple on the background. So we're just going to get some purple down here and see where we can get to. As always, I have no destination in mind this morning, and I do want I was watching a video by another artist. I don't even remember who it was, and she actually made a whole sleeve, an envelope for all the other pages in the journal except for the one she was working on in order to keep her journal clean. And I thought, oh, that's really a smart idea. I don't mind mine getting messy, but I could see that would be of benefit. I also love working on this thin craft paper that was from some kind of, it's not a grocery store bag, it's too thin, but some other kind of gift bag or something, because it is thin, there's wrinkles and folds in it, and so the paper itself creates a lot of texture. All right, and I think that one big bunch of dark purple on there, so I'm just using my catalyst wedge to move some of that paper around. And now I'm looking at the purple and thinking maybe this page is going to be yellow because purple and yellow are opposite on the color wheel, and I really like them together. And I love that Marion said hope is yellow, so maybe we're going to have some yellow with a blue bird. Clean off my catalyst wedge here. And let's come in with some, I love this bright primary yellow. And I love using any kind of scraper to move paint around the page. Better than a brush, it goes on in really thin layers. It really helps if you're learning to create layers. It moves the paint fast, but it also can make it really smooth, right? If I know I'm going to be doing some drawing on the page, I want that background to be smooth. If I mix this purple and yellow together, I'm going to get some brown, right? So I want to be mindful of how I'm mixing those colors together. But maybe just a little bit of yellow around the edges, a little bit of light in there, and using up the paint that's here. Last Thursday, I had fun. I went to visit my friend Dina in her studio, about an hour and a half away from here outside of Denver, and had not been to her home before. She used to have a in-person studio, and we have done a couple of retreats together. We're looking at doing one together this fall, and she had all this tons of canvas left over from when she was in the studio and doing more teaching that she's not doing. And it was so she gifted me a whole bunch of canvases. Many of them have paintings started on them. I'm just plugging my dryer in here. And so I'm going to have a ton of fun doing some collaborative paintings with things she started. And it's fun to think about how we can get influenced by others or jump off the artwork of others to create our own. So I'm going to get this really dry. So I'm excited. I've already started on one that was a painting of a buck, a male deer with big antlers. And so I started working on him yesterday. And then after I saw Dina, I some more of this lavender on here. Went to visit a client and see her studio. She rents a beautiful studio space in Denver, and it's so much fun to see other artist studios and how they have them all set up. I don't know, something about this springy lavender makes me think of the lilacs that soon will come. They're not here yet, but soon we'll have some beautiful lilacs. Clean that off. All right, I'm feeling pokey this morning. I'm like, okay, it's coming along, but it's not coming together as quickly as things normally do. And so I'm just being mindful of that. It's probably why I'm chit-chatting a lot. Not that I don't always talk a lot, but I'm waiting for the story to unfold. And I have kind of a glimpse of that story, but I'm still sort of sitting with where is this all going? So I'm going to get this page dry, and then I think I'm going to come over here and have some fun drawing a silly quirky bird, but I want this to be really dry first. And I'm noticing that that page is buckling on the back a little bit, so I'm just pressing that down. My cats are going absolutely bonkers, so you can see those were still a little bit damp, so now I have even more texture on there. Make sure that I heated up that glue a little bit. Okay, quirky birds. They're playing chase and they're just being quite loud this morning. Maybe I'm also wearing purple because I'm wearing my favorite purple nightshirt and excited to be wearing summer pajamas and not my having to wear my super warm pajamas. All right, so let's see. I'm going to draw a pretty big bird. So he's actually going to end up being maybe bigger than our character, but that's okay because that's how it feels, right? There's almost like there's this perspective of her, and maybe the poem is going to go here. And then we have this, maybe this bird perching over here. And I'm going to let this bird just kind of be playful and quirky. Birds are so much fun to draw, and they come in so many different. Hope takes time. Yes, it does. So true. And they never have to be perfect. All right. This little birdie needs to be sitting on a branch because Hope is perched, right? I love that. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. And I think our little birdie needs to be singing here. He's sort of duck looking this morning. She has a line in another poem about a bird where she says his eye looks like a bead, and it's so true. You know, they have these little tiny eyes that do look like little beads. And he needs a wing as he's perched here. And there we have just a really simple, quirky little bird. So when it comes to drawing quick little shapes like this, don't hesitate. Just have some fun with it, right? And just the more that we practice drawing, the better it gets. As you guys know, I love finding little sheets and will often print a shape to use as a template. But I also do love to practice drawing and spend a lot of time in that practice. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and outline my figure here. And I might need to, no, I can just see that under there with that pencil. So I usually keep a white chalk pencil on hand as well. So if I'm, tracing or doing some kind of silhouette like this and my background is dark, then a white chalk pencil is like your best friend. And even when I'm drawing on canvas, I have a box of just kids sidewalk chalk or, chalkboard chalk. Chalk is a great tool to have in your studio. And I think that Emily Dickinson, I know you guys can't see that because of the glare in there, but I've drawn that in there. Thank you, Tori. Um, would have worn dresses like this, right? She still lived in the a time when women were dressed formally. So this dress makes sense to me. And what we got here, I'm going to just go ahead and get an outline down on her so I can see her placement on the page and decide where I want to go to her. And actually there is I think there was a picture of her in here, or did I see one online? Must have been one I saw online. They don't have a portrait of her, but if you go look at her, she was very slender, sort of austere looking. I think I do want to get those hands on here as well. And I love this sort of sense of her. She's just looking, right? She's just watching that bird. You can imagine her, gazing out the window of her room, seeing or hearing the birds singing. And maybe she needs some little here too. All right. We're going to give Mr. Birdie some of this gorgeous, this is an aqua green, so it's kind of a very bluey green. Dina also gave me a whole bunch of brushes for the studio, so I've been having fun playing with some different sizes and shapes of brushes than what I had. I'm going to leave his wing there yellow. And the pencil I'm using is a Blackwing. It's one of my favorites, but this one has a very dark lead in it, which I like a lot for writing with, but drawing with it can be, if you want it to disappear, it's not the best choice. A nice soft drawing pencil would be better. But I'm okay with that little bit of quirky edge around there, and I'm probably going to outline my little birdie here and add some Zentangle patterns or doodles. And we might need some clouds up in the sky here too, since he's perched high on a branch singing his little heart out. But hope is the thing with feathers that perches in my soul and sings the tune without the word and never stops at all. And it's such an uplifting and inspiring. There's a sweetness to it that just can't help but lifting our spirits as we listen. And maybe we'll get just a tiny little bit of orange on that beak. Not that orange. That one is dead. Let's try this. This is a very red orange, maybe a little orangier than I wanted, but we'll make it work. And brushes make a difference, and I think it's so helpful to have a variety of brushes in your toolkit, and especially to have some little tiny ones. I could have also done this with a Posca marker, which would have been fast and easy and neat. And what are we going to do with our branch here? Let's see. Let's try a little bit of this raw sienna. And I'm going to want to bring this same blue and orange and maybe that sienna over here somehow into my design. I definitely want to bring that yellow over here. Maybe even her silhouette needs to be yellow, but you know, right now these pages don't have enough to do with each other, and this is part of a spread, and I want to be able to see that story. So I'm also thinking about how am I going to pull this palette over. This is raw sienna. And I might even like that to be a little more brown, so I'm just going to add a little bit of purple to that raw sienna. And not only am I going to darken up the brown, just warm it up a little bit, but because I'm using the same purple, it starts to feel like it's the same family that's on the other side. What's up, Georgia? Come say hello. Good morning. Oh, you can't be in my paint. All right. And then I'm going to come back with that orange once this is dry and get his legs nice and orange. So after lunch yesterday, I took my mom and my stepdad to one of our favorite little pond areas to walk in. And the pelicans are here right now flying through, and it was just magical to be around just literally dozens and dozens of pelicans. And at one point, we actually had a dozen of them circling overhead, and they are so enormous and just majestic flyers. We also saw a bunch of osprey circling. Like it was really magical. All right, I am just trusting my flow here, bringing some of the colors across the page. And just that's making me want to maybe add some of those branches. Maybe we'll even bring a few leaves in. Curious on the journey is always the mantra that I use when I'm painting these pages, is to stay curious on the journey. I'm being inspired here by Emily Dickinson. And I'm wondering if she wants to be blue. And then we'll get maybe some hand-drawn yellow patterns on her. We'll see. But right now she's going to be blue, starting to again add these colors and pull the colors from one side of the page to the other. She's very serious and proper, and our bird over here is very silly. So there's a, interesting sort of contradiction in the two sides of the art here. But I'm still loving this silhouette and sort of pulling this same image into the journal in a few different ways. What are other people working on this morning? You following along? Are you working on other projects? Okay, I definitely like the blue on there. We definitely need to pull that yellow across from one side to the other. I may even just come in and have some fun with just a little bit of mark making. Mostly just I'm using up the paint on the canvas or on my palette here. Using one little bluebird. Chat is covered up here. Using one little, oh, don't do that. One little bluebird and washi taped collage bird as they echo each other. Nice. Love it. Okay, that's feeling better. We're getting somewhere. And maybe this nice raw sienna here will be good for the legs. It's not going to be bright enough for the feet. The contrast, I'll have to come in and brighten that up. We'll start to just give our little birdie here some texture. One of the poems I found, you're all over the place this morning listening to you while looking at colors. I love that. One of the poems that I found this morning when I was looking at, out of 1,800 poems, it's hard to pick. So I did some looking around, what are some of her most popular, most famous songs, and there's one about a snake that's just absolutely adorable, this sort of childlike perspective on a snake. And so at some point this week, we will definitely read that poem. So we're going to spend all week with Miss Emily Dickinson. And I'm making these leaves over here, that same raw sienna. Again, I'm wanting to mix the colors, and I'm not really wanting to introduce another color here. Like I'm looking at this going, green is not going to go with this palette that I've chosen. So I'm trying to limit my palette to sort of keep that color story all in the same family. We'll get some grasses in here. Still not sure what I'm going to do with her. Maybe I'm going to, the poem's too long to write in here. But I like these kind of moody colors, right? There's a sense of moodiness and drama happening on this side of the page, which is an interesting contradiction to the sort of playfulness that's happening over here. I almost stuck my paintbrush in my cup of coffee. All right, I'm going to get this dry and then decide where to go next. And next I'm going to come in just with some black and white and add some final details here. And I also want to think about where I want to put the poem. The poem might even go over on this next page, but I'm thinking, you know, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul, wants to be on the page somewhere. And so it's probably going to go in my own handwriting, but I want to get some more patterns down here. And I'm going to go ahead and outline my little birdie. Just make him really pop out from the page. It also will cover up those pencil marks and just give him a little more definition. Giving him just some little feathery shapes on his wing. And maybe some little just festive curly cues for fun. Let's black in our music notes. And now he's really standing out, popping out from the page. Give him some feedback. And I'm going to do the same thing on my branch down here. I know, right? So the poems in this book they have the year on them, but they don't have the season on them. But I would guess that many of her poems seem to have been written in spring. I didn't get the whole page on this one, but this was actually one of her, let's see, earlier poems. I can tell you the year. But she definitely has a lot of bird imagery. So this was from 1862. And all the poems are numbered, must be in the order they appeared, but there's, you know, rainbows, right? So maybe spring rains. But there, well, and here's one about winter that comes later. So, and I don't know, makes me definitely curious what was her inspiration out beyond her window. It's amazing how adding these bold black lines can really just change the look of a piece, brighten up the images quite a bit. My birdie needs some tail feathers here. And he's wanting to be pretty simple. You know, normally I would have a lot of fun adding a lot more patterns, but I'm not feeling that patterns are the way we're going. But I want her to be as bold in line as he is. So I'm going to bring that black over here as well. And she needs a little touch of yellow, so maybe some yellow flowers on her dress to kind of pull the rest of that color story over. And maybe I'm going to come in here with my I love adding lines like this to my paintings. adding just definition and visual interest. I think Posca's really changed my relationship with my paintings and how I paint. Because they allowed me to really combine so many of the things that I love. With the Zentangle and lots of mark making and the painting. And also it starts, good morning, Yvonne. It starts to, again, pull these pages together, right? So even though she looks very formal, and this is very childlike, which is how I love to draw, is very childlike. He needs just some more little curly cues there. The color story is the same, right? So they don't feel like they're two completely separate pages, which was my intention, to have both pages be part of the story here. All right. I think I saw a yellow Posca. So again, I'm just trying to pull some of these colors. I'm probably going to come back with a little bit of this lavender. Maybe I'll make some lavender leaves here to kind of pull those stories together. And I'm going to keep her pretty simple. Just that little bit of touch of yellow on there, again, helps those stories come across. Maybe polka dots. I love that. Maybe polka dots. My friend Sherry was here with me this weekend, and I was so grateful to have her. So we were each working on paintings, and it was so much fun to be able to give each other feedback on the paintings we were working on and figure out where to go next and what was that one little detail that would really finish it off. And I shared a bigger painting that I finished this weekend on my Facebook and Instagram pages, and that I was really happy with. It was a very different style for me, but I don't know that I would have finished it or would have been as good without the input from Sherry. So let's just get some polka dots there. I love polka dots. Thank you, Leslie. Just what it needed. And maybe the bird is going to have some matching polka dots over there. So for me, this is that fun, playful part. She needs some polka dots there too, but she's still wet. So you can just see those. I know the light is shiny, but there you can see those sweet little polka dots and a few little flowers. And I'm wondering if our birdie over here. So this is very subtle. You'd have to get pretty close to see the yellow. If I wanted that to be brighter, I'd have to come in with some white first. And I haven't added white yet, so I might actually go outline some of these polka dots in white. I'm going to brighten up his eye too. We're going to get a little bit of that lavender over on this page. And maybe a few lavender leaves over here, and then a little spot of white, and this page will be complete. And it's not just a little quirky bird, but it feels like it's a quirky color palette too. And I think it's important to stretch ourselves when we're working with color. Look for inspiration outside in your own photographs, photographs online of things that you find interesting. Try different color combinations. It's really helpful to have either a handmade or a purchased color wheel to play with color combinations. And just that little bit of lavender, again, is just helps pull the story across, right? And I can even maybe bring just a little touch of that lavender into his wing here. So we're just getting that color across the 2 pages. Funky palette. It's all good. Okay, now I want to come in with some white. It definitely needs some white just to brighten it up. It's amazing just adding a few little dots. We can just add a little bright spot of white. Paint's not quite dry. All right, let me hit this with the dryer. And either one of these pages on their own would have been a nice illustration of the poem too, right? Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in my soul. And I'm looking at this thinking there could have just been a sweet little birdie perched in the trees here. So I've almost got 2 different versions going. And I'm just adding one little spot of white to the base of each of these leaves. It's just going to brighten them up. Not perfect. I love these kind of end up maybe looking like a little bit of stars or light up here. And it just changes everything, just these little touches of white. And I can always, and I might come back with that yellow one more time right over the top of that white. I kind of like the little funky orbs. Let's get the centers of our flowers here. Just a little bit of white brightens everything up just a touch. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just give these leaves a tiny little bit of definition. Doesn't take a lot. You probably can't even, oh, it shows a little bit, but we're just going to get some of that same little bit of white. I love that I can still see some of the writing through that yellow back up here. It just adds to the story. All right. And again, it's just adding layers of marks and color and texture until you're happy and it feels complete. Keeping it simple, keeping it fun, interesting. 2 pages that don't quite seem like they go together. I'm actually feeling like maybe I want a bunch more. Yes, exactly, Yvonne. That was the whole idea. She's looking to her hope, and her hope is big. It was exactly what I was thinking when I was looking at the sizes of them. I think she needs more leaves here on the page. And we're just going to put just a little bit of white on these legs and feet. This is the part for me where it's hard to stop, where I start to just have fun with the marks and I could just keep going. And now we have the same colors, the same patterns, right? We have this symmetry across the page that makes me really happy. I definitely feel like I want more of this, these lavender leaves here. And we're gonna, if it is spring, I'm gonna want to really have that tree be a lot more full and maybe even have some of those flow over here onto that other page. She'll just kind of sort of help bring things together. And I'm just letting the shape of this brush be that shape of the leaf. There's nothing I have to do here. All right, that feels better. Like it's really flowing off the page, across the page. And it almost feels like she needs just a little more of that lavender to pop through over here too, just a touch. When I see fun things like this, it makes me want to design my own fun fabrics. I don't know how to sew. I'd have to find someone to make things out of them, but it's fun to think about designing my own fabrics. All right, maybe just a little light on the head. And these little quirky feathers. Now he looks like a quail with his little crest on his head. So it definitely needs words. And I think the words are going to end up going here. And I'm going to hit this with the dryer one more time so I don't drag my hand through it. All right, and pull those out of there, and I am going to call that one complete. They could have been interwoven in the words for sure, but I just sort of squeeze them in there. I like that they're a little bit subtle. There were a lot of places I probably could have filled in a few more words. Yes, Spoonflower can definitely do that. We're looking at having some of Connor and I's mandala designs printed on fabrics. But yeah, they definitely take your paintings and turn them into fabric. My client I visited the other day had a gorgeous collage piece sent to them to print on fabric for bookmaking. Super fun. All right, my friends, it is very sweet. I will also put the words to the poem here on this page. So I'm trying to make sure I have all the poems in the journal, but it's a kind of a different funky page, but I like how it came out. I do love that she's sort of gazing at hope. Might need a little more detail here, but I'm going to let that get dry, let it sit, and I will think about it. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Great to see you. Please hit like on that video if you enjoyed this process. Encourage others to watch. It did fly by, Blanca. I'm like, where did that hour go? I think it was because I was chatting as I was trying to figure out the direction I was going, and it looks like such a simple page, but it took me a while to get there. Have a beautiful day. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Bye bye.